What's up, guys? How are you doing? I hope you're well. So this is a new project series that I'm starting. It's Golang and DynamoDB, and we'll be building a bulletproof CRUD API. Now you know that CRUD APIs are at the center of everything, right? So if you can build a CRUD API with a particular stack, you can probably build more complex products off from it. I've received a lot of requests recently. So people have said that, okay, MongoDB is great. You know, you've shown me MongoDB, you've shown me Postgres, you've shown me MySQL and SQLite as well. So, but what if I want to go serverless with the database? What if I want to take it to the cloud? What if I wanted to, scale automatically and be like for it to be a completely fully managed service? You know, what if we're going into production? What if we're expecting millions of users? That's when DynamoDB comes in handy. It's completely serverless. You pay as you go. And it's the sky is the limit. I mean, even sky is not the limit. You can just keep scaling to millions and millions of users with DynamoDB, completely fully managed. All right. So that's what we'll be using here. DynamoDB is like the ultimate, in my opinion. It's no SQL. It's fully managed. It's on AWS cloud. It's serverless. I mean, what more can you want, right? So I'm really excited for this project. And the project structure that I'll be sharing with you in this video is going to be very different from what we have done till now. So in every series, I try to change the project structure entirely, and I try to experiment with new type of project structure so that we're able to kind of get a flavor of everything that's there in the market. All right. So this is going to be a very different project structure, and I'm going to be using the chi router. So some people might call it Kai or chi router, whatever you're going to call it. This is just like a routing middleware. It's not a full-blown framework, I think. Like people call it a framework, but I think it's just a middleware router kind of thing. And it's not like Gin and Gonic. It doesn't have all those features. It doesn't have that level of abstraction, but it's fun to work with. I mean, I like using it a lot, and I use it in a lot of projects. So I highly encourage you to use it as well, because there are some things that are very easy to use in the Chi router. Firstly, it's very easy to set up, very fast. If you're working on a fast project and you want to get things done very quickly, it's very fast. And there's also more control. I mean, with Gin and Gonic, I feel there's so much abstraction that you're not able to really control so many different things. I mean, you're so dependent on that library, right? So I hate that. When I'm going into production, I want to be in control of the code. I don't know. Maybe I'm just old school. I don't know, man. All right. So why do I call it bulletproof? It's because this project structure is going to be quite good. So we're going to have defined error messages for different type of errors, like let's say 200, 500 or 402 or 404 or 422 or whatever you want to call it. You'll have different error messages for all of those different scenarios, and then we'll have we'll be using interfaces. We'll be using a logger. We'll be handling coarse errors. We'll be having a health check to ensure the project is live. We'll be having a recovery middleware. We'll be using Chi for that. And then we'll have some validation. We'll be using a library called Ozo for validation. It's very easy. That's why I like to use it. Very simple, small libraries, right? So it's a really solid project structure, really solid CRUD API. You can use this project structure as is for your future projects. And I highly encourage you to use Chi router. I highly encourage you to use DynamoDB. Because there's literally no limit for you to scale, right? So you need to know the concepts with Postgres, with MySQL, and with MongoDB. So all those concepts can be very handy when you work with things like DynamoDB, which are fully managed services. All right. Now you know that I don't like to waste a lot of time, so what I'll do is we'll get started right away. I've opened up my terminal and we'll start creating the project. I'm in a place where I usually keep my Golang projects. And we'll say mkdir DynamoDB Golang YouTube project. Actually, that'll be too long, so I'll just say CRUD, I think, and then YouTube, or just YT to save some time. I'm not sure if it saves any time. Anyhow, so we'll cd into it. So we'll say DynamoDB. And here we'll open up the code using our favorite code editor, which is VS Code. All right. So yes, I trust the author because the author is me. Now I'll have a folder called CMD. All right. So we're just like building the project from a 10,000 feet perspective, right? So I want to have a folder called CMD. I want to have a folder called config. I want to have a folder called internal. And I want to have a folder called utils, which is basically your utility files, right? And yeah, that's about it actually. Now inside CMD, I'll have a folder called app. Okay, so by the way, like I said, I think I've already told you that this is a new project structure that I'm kind of trying out. I've seen it somewhere, and I want to like try it out. I've seen it in a Python Django project, right? So I want to try this out, and so I keep trying out so many different project structures because I want to know which one is the best, which one scales well. When you have a project structure, it does not mean that the technology scales well. It means that process-wise and people-wise, how does it scale? In the sense, if multiple people are working on a project, does it become easier in a particular project structure for them to work? Because I think it does. I think the project structure determines how easy it's going to be for many people to work together on a project, all right? And how easy it's going to be to scale in terms of features, in terms of the number of files that you put out. So I keep experimenting a lot. And you're welcome to experiment with me because, if you watch this channel, I am doing different things in different videos anyway, so keep experimenting with me. Don't stick to one approach that will really restrict your career completely, all right? You'll just become like a frog in a well, just if you know just how to use let's say just Node.js and Express.js, and I can only use Redis. That will just really restrict you. Just work around with different type of frameworks, right? Instead of Express, use Happy HAPI, or use Fastly, whatever. And all right, so here you have config, and then inside internal is where the most of the magic is, right? Inside of your internal folder. First, I'll just close these two files to keep things clean. Inside your internal, you'll have controllers. And inside your internal, you'll have one more folder called entities. Then you'll have handlers, routes. So routes will have your routes that will, the control will go forward to handlers, will go forward to controllers. That's how, I'm imagining it's going to work. And then you have something called as repository. So in the projects that I found that had this project structure, they are in the repository that kept like models and that kind of stuff, and things to do with the database. So let's see what we use it for. Okay, and then I'll have one more folder called rules. In utils, you'll have environment, you'll have HTTP, and you'll have logger, because we're going to use the logger, right? Now what you want to do is you want to create a very basic outline for the main.go file. If you've been watching my channel, I always do this. So it's a very, very basic kind of an outline. We'll have package main, we'll have import, and we'll have obviously func main, which is the most important function in any Golang project, right? And main.go is the most important file always. Now I'll have a couple of more functions, and I'll explain to you what they do, but just for now, write these functions. One is called migrate. Then you have a function that just checks your tables in the database. So just create check tables. Okay, and then just put this file on hold. I mean, we won't do anything here. So now what we'll do is we'll go to our routes folder, close this file for now, go to your routes folder, create two files here. So create config.go and create routes.go. routes.go. In your config.go file, now, so there's one more thing that we're going to do here, right? One thing I've probably not told you about is that each of the folders, all the files in those folders will belong to the same package, and that will make it very easy for us to import them into different files. So that means that inside the routes folder, config and routes, these two files will belong to the same package, and the package will be called as package routes. Okay, and at the same time, we can go to your routes file and just write package routes, and quickly create an outline here. you'll have your import, you'll have your functions for new router. It's new router, sorry. And just hold this routes file for now. Just write this much and just hold it for now, and we'll come back to it. But the most important part right now for us is to work on the config.go file. Okay. Here you'll say import, and here I want to import 3 things. I want to import net/http, import time, and github.com/ghost-g/course. And I'll create a struct called config. Now this is something that I have not done before, so let me show you what I mean by this. And it has just one thing called time.duration. Right, so we've created a new struct called config. So we'll use it in our project, and we'll use it with the name of config. And it has just one thing called timeout. Okay. And here we'll have a function for our course, handling our course. The C has to be capital. And then we just have 2 more functions. We have one function which will be set timeout and get timeout. Now the reason we created this struct here is because all of these will be these struct methods. Okay, like methods, like basically struct methods are like functions that are applied only if you have that struct, right? You can read about struct methods more if you want. It's very simple. It's just like functions. They're just like functions only, but you need to have this kind of a struct if you want to apply those functions. All right. And then we'll also have one more function called new config star config. So this just returns a config. Let me remove my headphones. Let me just check if this video is still recording, because I don't want to be in a position where I end up recording for like 30 minutes and then I find out that it's not recording. And config. Okay, so it just returns an empty config struct. This is what this function does. Okay, this is what it returns. All right. So for cores, so I just told you that core, set timeout, and get timeout, these 3 are struct methods, right? What does that mean? C star config. And here you'll say next http.handler. So you'll pass the handler here in this function. And what do you get back from this function? Again, handler. And then this function will have some definition. Similarly, here you'll again say C and config, because it's a struct method. Inside set timeout, you'll say time in seconds and integer. So you'll pass a variable here, or a parameter here rather, called time in seconds. It's of type int, and this returns config. So just make sure the C is capital. And then you have your get timeout, which is again C star config. And here you'll have, so this function won't take anything, and it will return time.duration, which is basically c.timeout. Okay. So this function, get timeout, is just limited to this much. I mean, there's nothing more that you want to do here. But the set timeout function, we can do a little more. We'll say set timeout is equal to time dot duration, time in seconds, multiplied by time dot second. And you return config from here. Now the whole point of having this file is this function, actually, the course function. All right, and this is the most important function in this file. So let's create it. So we'll say return course dot new course dot options, and in these options we'll define that from where all we want the origin to be, all right. So we'll say allowed origins string star. By saying star, that means we allow all origins. Okay. And what type of methods are allowed? So we'll say allow methods string star. We'll say allowed headers. So what type of headers are allowed? So we want to say that obviously everything is allowed in our project, right? So we'll say star. And exposed headers string star. Allowed credentials to true and max age to 5 comma dot handler next. All right, so next basically sends it to the next function, which is basically your HTTP handler. And so this is what basically your course function is doing. Very simple and straightforward. You're just saying that these are the allowed origins, these are the allowed methods, allowed headers, export header, all of that is equal to star. That means everything is allowed. I mean, don't give me an error if somebody else tries to access it from another, IP address or something like that. Anyhow, so this is this file is ready. Now head back over to your routes.go file, and here I want to have a struct called router, which will be config star config. It will also have router, which will be chi.mux. Okay. And so what does this new router return? It just returns, this function returns a router, right? That's why we have the function called new router. And that's why we'll say return a router from this function. So return ampersand router. When I say ampersand router, I am referring to this struct. That's why I say ampersand router, okay? And so it has two values, config and router. So I want to define both of those. So I'll say here new config dot set timeout service config dot get config dot timeout comma router g dot new router. Then you'll have a function called set routers. So we'll say func set routers r star router. So this takes some parameters and returns the gmux. And then we'll have set config routers function. Important thing to note here is that set routers and set config routers, both of these functions are actually struct methods, right? So when we have a struct method of type router, that's how we have to write it. These are struct methods, and they take in some parameters. This function doesn't take any parameters, but this function does take some parameters. All right, so I'll talk about it in a while, not right now, otherwise it'll confuse you. And here we'll do a couple of things inside this function. Then we'll have a function for router health. So we'll say func router health. I'll have a function for router product. So all the routes that we'll be having will be around product. So like create product, get all products, All right, so we'll have router product here. And then we'll have a function for enable timeout. A function for enable course. Function for enable recovery. Function for enable request ID. And a function for enabling the real IP. So these are just outlines. We'll actually fill in these functions in the next video. We're just creating outlines for here. So you have your main.go file outline here. Config.go file is created. We've not written anything inside. And inside routes, we have our config. This file is complete. And routes, we've created the outline for many functions here. And so I have to rush for a meeting. And in the next video, we'll actually pick up from here. And then we'll, start creating the other files. I hope you're learning new things and you're just, experimenting along with me. We're building new type of products with new project structures. So thanks a lot for watching, and do subscribe to this channel if you haven't already, and see you in the next video.